got to accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, and latch on to the affirmative. Don't mess with Mr. In Between.
Okay, so we're now transitioning into the third lesson, which is Hooray for Hollywood. And in this lesson, the focus is on being really specific with our lyrics. We're being really detailed so that if someone were to listen to our song, they would say, I know what year you're writing in, or gosh, I had no idea what Miami was like, but now I get it, right? So that's really the goal of Hooray for Hollywood. So if everyone can turn to page 12, you will see the lyrics to Hooray for Hollywood. Now, Johnny Mercer wrote this song in the 30s. So all of the references in this song are using people, places, and things from the 1930s. So there are definitions to those people, places, and things in like the dark gray words and a little bit up at the top in the white bolded words. And if they're thinking, gosh, who's that? They might want to check around and to see if they can find definitions for that, okay? So what I'll do is I'll play them the song, and I'll ask them to tell me whether this is a serious song or whether this is a silly song, okay? And the version that I use starts in a slower way, and then it gets a little bit more up-tempo. So sometimes there's confusion with if it's a serious or a silly song, which I actually like because it's a good learning opportunity. So I will play you just a little portion of it. If you want to build on another lesson, you can even say, circle the rhymes that you hear.
Hooray for Hollywood, that screwy valley, Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a fan.
So I'm going to fast forward it just a little so you can hear where it speeds up.
Where you're terrific if you're even good. Where anyone at all from TV's.
Oh, I'm lying. Oh, shoot. Technical difficulties. Hold on. I know, I should have just left it, right? Try to be too complicated. All right, so you'll get the picture. It'll speed up at some point. It'll go da 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 da. And what happens is the students sort of, you'll hear them giggle, they have some funny sort of terms, but it'll help them understand, like, gosh, like, is this a serious song or a silly song that's just sped up? So I'll say, raise your hand if you thought this was a serious song, raise your hand if you thought this was a silly song, and I'll introduce that someone had mentioned the tempo or the slowness of the Blues in the Night, that helped indicate it. And I'll say, yeah, it is confusing because it starts out really slow, right? I'm being very serious because and then it gets to, I'm gonna make fun of Hollywood. You can go there, da 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 da. So you start to inform them on the use of tempo and what that can do in helping create an atmosphere or a feeling about a song. I'll ask them to direct their attention to the last stanza. So if you guys can direct your attention to the last stanza, take a look at about 4 or 5 lines down. Within a half an hour, you'll look like Tyrone Power. Hooray for Hollywood. And I'll say, who's Tyrone Power? And a lot of them will say, I don't know. And I'll say, okay, well, see if you can find it in the definitions over to the right. And I'll ask them to read the definition. Tyrone Power was a dashing Hollywood leading man, most famous for The Mark of Zorro in 1940, right? So all of a sudden, you're thinking, oh my gosh, okay, so you can come to Hollywood, and in a half an hour, you're going to end up like the most leading, dashing Hollywood man. Now, if we were to write this song in 2014, who might we insert in that lyric? Brad Pitt. Oh, within a half an hour, you can come to Hollywood, and oh, no problemo, you can become like Brad Pitt. Sometimes kids might say Justin Bieber, and then everyone reacts and is like, yeah, no. And sometimes actually I'll say, you know why you're reacting? Because you know who he is, right? Whether you agree or not with whether someone's dashing, you have a reaction because you know who he is. And that's exactly what we want to try to do in our lyrics. We want to try to be really specific so that people can start to understand our world. Your job as a songwriter is to invite the audience into your world, right? So in order to help us do that, we're going to brainstorm specific people, places, and things of today. So everyone turn to page 17. And again, that's listed exactly on this PowerPoint. If you guys feel lost, you can really use that as a blueprint. So on page 17, you'll see spaces to fill in your own chart about stars, slang, and fads and games. And I'll turn their direction over to the whiteboard. And I'll start to brainstorm and actually fill in this chart. So we're not going to spend a lot of time today actually filling it out, but usually in class, I will take quite a bit of time to make sure that they're understanding this concept. And I'll actually have them write it in their books. And sometimes I'll say, you need to write a little bit smaller than you normally would, because we have a lot of information to fill in these boxes. So for stars, you can introduce, or you can ask them to give you famous people, singers, actors, actresses, sports people. Sometimes a student will say, Johnny Mercer. And I'll be tickled inside. And I'll say, yay, I'm happy you brought up Johnny Mercer. Although if we heard Johnny Mercer's name in a song, would we know that it was 2014? Probably not, right? So we're trying to get them really focused into this decade, at least, okay? For slang. Slang is one of those fun ones that I love introducing because it's like a hipper, cooler way of saying something. And if they don't automatically attach themselves to the idea of slang, sometimes I'll say, well, let's say I came into the classroom and I said, hello, how are you today? What's like a cooler, hipper way of saying, hello, how are you today? Hey, what's up? What's up? Or hey dog. Sometimes I get D-A-W-G, or bro. Another concept that I introduce, which I love that you brought up the texting, because a lot of people are texting or chatting, are the acronyms, right? OMG, or LOL, or BRB. I learn new ones every day when I teach with them. But that's also can be included in slang. In this last box here, you'll see fads and games. We are in the age of technology, right? So sometimes I'll say, what gaming systems do we use? What are some gaming systems that the kids might use, or that you might use? Xbox, Wii U, right? And then I'll get a little bit even more specific. I'll say, okay, so, you know, a lot of us watch TV, and TVs used to be these big tubes, these big heavy tubes. And now let's say we wanted to go to an electronics store and get a TV. What is like a more updated version of a TV? Now they're really what? Flat screen TV, right? So you're introducing them to this idea of, gosh, I can get even more specific with our lyrics. We're introducing them into our world. So now, after you've brainstormed this chart, we're going to brainstorm, well, what are we going to write about today? So Johnny Mercer, writing the song, Johnny Mercer wrote a song, Hooray for Hollywood. So that's exactly what we're going to do.